Hello, everyone. Welcome to Digital Nomad Mastery, the podcast where we teach you how to travel the world while making income or multiple incomes online. So on these series of interviews, we've been interviewing digital nomads from around the world. We've covered places as far as Bali, Indonesia. We've covered Mexico. We've covered England and Cape Town. I'm actually in French Guyana, of all places, which is in the northeast of South America. Our friend and co-host Scott is over in Croatia. And we have a very special couple who are interviewing today. We're actually in the middle of the Caribbean in St. Vincent. And for those of you who are listening or watching who don't know much about St. Vincent, we'll make sure we ask these guys a little bit about the country there, the island, living in the Caribbean, and especially we're going to be focusing on the digital nomad journey. So to start off, Yvonne and Michael, why don't you share a little bit about yourselves and your journey? You're actually from the same city that we are, Vancouver, BC, Canada, and now you've ended up in the Caribbean. We've ended up in South America, and our friend Scott's over there in Europe. So tell us a little bit of your backstory, please.
Go ahead.
Okay. Like many British Columbians, we were working really hard. We had 2 cars, we had the big house. We were working long hours and just felt like we were on the treadmill. We were just spinning. And a friend died of a nasty disease, and we asked ourselves, if we had something like that happen to us, would we have any regrets? And the regret was not to see the world. And so we decided to do something about it.
Yeah, and my background is I'm from the same alma mater as you. I have a mechanical engineering degree from the University of British Columbia, and I worked 20 years as a consultant in the oil and gas industry, and just came to the point where I wanted to change in my life. So 5 years ago, we decided to rent out the house in Vancouver, and we've been traveling and house sitting full time ever since. For the last 5 years, so we're loving every moment of it.
So tell us a bit about how you got into house sitting, because that's a fascinating way, in my opinion, to travel the world. And so first of all, what is a house sitter? What do they do? What are their responsibilities? And then maybe a little bit about how you got into it, and maybe a couple tips on people that are interested in doing it.
Okay. Well, house sitting has been around for a very long time. And how we do it is we don't charge for our services. There are some people that do, but because we use it as a means of traveling, we do a straight exchange. So we look after the house, the pets, water the garden, make sure the home is secure, and we get free accommodation. We don't pay for any bills, we don't pay for any internet, we don't pay for phone. We usually get use of a car, and so we get ourselves there, we put gas in the car, and we feed ourselves.
Yeah, and the way we discovered this is, like I said, 5 years ago, we'd made the decision. We made the intention to quit the rat race and travel, to follow our passion for travel. So in the process of determining how we were going to make that work financially, we started looking at different options. We knew, because we had a house in Vancouver, we started looking at house swapping first. But the logistics of traveling full time and setting up house swaps all the time just wasn't going to work for us. And then with a little bit of internet research, Yvonne came across the concept of house sitting. Mm-hmm. And we said, this looks great. So we signed up for one of the online platforms that basically act as kind of a matchmaking service. It's, with the internet, it's allowed homeowners in Vancouver, or homeowners in Europe or the Caribbean, to connect with anyone in the world. So we joined up and we applied for a very first house sit in Tuscany, Italy. And we showed up there just near Lucca and fell in love with it. We thought, if this is what house sitting is all about, we're in.
Absolutely.
So tell us about the last 5 years. I mean, it's one thing to leave Vancouver, BC, Canada, and now end up in the Caribbean and in between Italy, of course. But tell us a little bit about the 5 years. Where have you visited? What kind of house sits have you done? Any highlights or lowlights?
Mostly highlights. We started off in Europe. The main reason being that we wanted to explore Europe and also wanted to see my family, who are English. And the first house sit was in Tuscany, just outside of Lucca. We thought we'd gone to heaven without the inconvenience of dying. We fell in love with it. It was beautiful. We had a 300-degree view and just sitting watching the rolling hills. It was just fantastic. We also, in Europe, we also set up sits in Spain and France. We actually looked after a vineyard in France, complete with a wine warehouse. So we were happy there. And then we took the rest of the time and we explored around Europe. So I think we explored 14 countries while we were in Europe.
Yeah, we were also in London during the 2012 Olympics. We had a homeowner decided to get out of Dodge and escape all the craziness. So we were more than happy to look after their 15th century Tudor home and take in the Olympics at the same time. So after that, that was our first summer house sitting, which was a pretty good introduction to it. We've also house sat in Belize, in Central America. We've house sat in San Jose, Costa Rica, in Panama. And then for the last 4 years, we've almost been house sitting exclusively in the Caribbean islands. We've been bouncing around between St. Lucia, St. Vincent, Barbados, and Grenada. We've built up a clientele that basically keep us busy about 10 months of the year, house sitting in the Caribbean. So.
But last year, we also house sat in Ecuador and Mexico. So we got to do some exploring there as well, which is very cool.
So you can pretty much do this anywhere in the world. And I want to emphasize one thing that you said, because I'd never thought of it the way that you discussed it. But you can set up, like, these are the 10, like the 4 countries I want to spend most of my time in. And then you've got, 1 or 2 people in all those countries that now know you and are, whenever they're going to go away for any length of time, you're the obvious people for them to first contact. And so it's because when I first think of house sitting, and my experience of house sitting has been, well, I can go for, 2 weeks way over there and then another 2 weeks way over there and bounce all over the place. And it's just very chaotic. But it sounds to me like you've got this very well organized so that it just becomes part of your lifestyle. And who wouldn't want to, spend a couple months on one island and a few weeks on another island and then another month here and another month there, and get to enjoy a pretty nice lifestyle.
Well, it is a really nice lifestyle, and that's when we first started. We weren't sure how the logistics were going to work out in terms of stringing it together, but there's been a couple things that we've discovered. First of all, even though some of the house sitting platforms are very popular, like some of them have 20,000 potential house sitters on them. What we've found, especially in areas where there's a larger expat community, is there's a pent-up demand. And that combined with a homeowner's trepidation to invite a total stranger into their home, once you break in and once you make a connection in an island or a neighborhood or a country, once you get into the community and you get a name for yourself, we find that we have more house sits than we know what to do. We've actually created a small group of fellow house sitters that we know and trust, and if we can't house sit for a client, we can recommend other sitters to them, and so we've got this little network going. It's truly a sharing community between us, the homeowners, and our fellow sitters. So we're kind of all watching out for each other's back.
Yeah.
And
I want to get into that community. I'll tell you right now. I've been doing some volunteer workaways, and I'm beginning to notice. I only started in January, but what you're talking about, in that there's already 2 or 3 places that I've been where I know, particularly if it's off season or shoulder season, that they want me to come back. Right? It's because they loved having me around, and I was very helpful in the areas that I was helping them in, and that sort of thing. So I can really see, developing a network, and sure, it takes a little bit of time, but once you've developed it, you now have a tremendous life.
Yeah, absolutely. And you started earlier talking about house sitters bouncing around from point to point, and there are some house sitters that do that. But when we started, we decided that we were going to do like a continent or an area. So we had Europe and then South America. And then we got this offer in the Caribbean. And I actually had to talk Mike into going and doing it, because he said, well, it's so far away. And I said, no, but we're really cool. And we got one sit, and then we added another one, and then we added another one. And before you knew it, we had 4 months in the Caribbean. This year we have 10?
Yeah, 10 months altogether, back to back. So we've managed to string 10 months of back-to-back house sitting in the Caribbean with, I think, maybe 2 weeks downtime in the interim.
Probably not even that.
And you know what's funny? Once we've built our clientele, we have a website with our calendar, and our clients actually work their holidays around our schedule, so we can, you know, they talk to each other about, you know, when they're going to go.
Some of them talk to each other, some of them know each other.
So that's kind of cool too.
Yeah, and
really
referrals. This year we've got we've got new sits which are basically referrals. They're a neighbour, and they're all beautiful ocean view villas. So we can't complain at all.
You have a book out or a complimentary report, I'm not sure, on your website called What Everyone Ought to Know About House Sitting. So what I'd like you to do is tell us a little bit about the book and give us one thing that everyone ought to know about house sitting, because I'm sure there's more than one in the book, but what would be kind of like your favorite one?
Well, really the free report, it's a 5,000 word report, and basically what we wanted to do is just lay out the bare bones of what you need to know in order to launch yourself into a lifestyle of house sitting. So we go through, I believe we have 10 steps to walk through, where to find the house sits, what the house sitting lifestyle can afford you. But I think the most important message to prospective house sitters is to come from a place of service. I think there's a lot of people who think, you know, it sounds like a really cool lifestyle, which it is, but I think to be successful, you have to approach it from the perspective of how can I help the homeowner? What skills and what can I do to help the homeowner, you know, leave their home in the hands of Yvonne and myself, feel comfortable leaving. So that I think that's the main point. And I guess the second point is when you're first breaking in, is to be able to portray being able to provide a service to a house sitter through a really strong marketing message, because when you first break in, there can be a lot of competition for these type of house sits. So you need to know how to communicate effectively to a potential house sitting client, so they go, you're the person I want to look after my Caribbean villa.
Yeah. And there's different ways of doing that. You've got to be able to stand out from the crowd, and you've got to be able to talk to their needs. You know, if they say they need somebody to look after, to save Obie the Doberman from falling leaves and protect Feisty Foxy, you've got to be able to address that when you start talking to them. But I think the biggest thing, the biggest benefit, and the thing that most people won't do, is just do a short video. We call it the secret weapon. You just do a short video and you post it introducing yourselves. And we have clients coming to us saying, I feel I know you already, just from that little video.
That's a great tip.
Thank you.
So you've saved a lot in terms of the accommodation, and one of the big, I guess, barriers of travel is because people can't afford to stay in hotels around the world. So by eliminating that through house sitting is a great way. What I do is I do sponsored travel, so I cut my cost of accommodation by getting them sponsored, and in return, I do blog reviews of the hotels and resorts we stay in. Yvonne, obviously you need to still generate income to eat and to sightsee, etc. So what kind of stuff are you doing to make money while you're on this house sitting journey?
Well, I mean, we do have some assets back home, but what we do to supplement our income is we write. I started travel writing initially and wrote some articles for International Living, which developed into a very good relationship with the editors. And he wanted a couple of pieces on house sitting, and that morphed into us writing it's basically, it lives on its own website. So it's a house sitting product, which is marketed by International Living to their database. And because we provided the material, we jointly wrote it with International Living. And so we get part of the sales every time they make a sale, which makes a very nice little income for us.
International Living is a terrific magazine. I've been a subscriber for many years, and I love the writing that's in there. And I'm thinking, I don't remember them trying to sell me that book, because I'm pretty sure I would have bought it. So
just Google it. Just go onto their bookstore, punch in house sitting.
And also from a marketing point of view, it's nice to have the Agora company, the people who
That's
kind of
right.
wrote the book on the model to be promoting your material as well.
Yeah, absolutely. But we also, to keep our minds flexible and so we don't get too bored, we've actually started writing our own ebooks as well. And Roaring Gecko Media is our what do you call it?
Well, it's the our brand is our brand. So we've written 4 books that we've uploaded to Amazon over the last couple of years, and you know it gives us some beer money, but it's also really, I think there's a lot of potential with it, and it just, the technology blows me away that we can be sitting in the Caribbean and write a Word document and then upload it to the Amazon platform and have the ability to, you know, market it to the whole world. It really is is pretty amazing what you can do.
And the books are resource books. One of them is Selling Up the Travel, when it covers the whole process of how we emptied and downsized a 4-bedroom house, how we set ourselves up to be digital nomads, because there's a lot involved. You've been there yourself, you know, just the banking and the mail and what you do with the stuff and the things you don't want to get rid of. And we don't have storage lockers. We've condensed everything down to about eight blankets boxes, which are in your mom's basement.
Good for you. That's great. I have about 15.
Oh, that's not too bad. It's not too bad.
Yeah, that is quite the process of downsizing and minimalizing. It's not, you realize it's not only about our stuff, but also the emotions and the memories and a lot of the stuff that goes along with it. There's
a lot of history with all those little things, right?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Cool. So tell us a little bit about your Globetrotter's Guide to Travel Insurance, because I think that's a topic that is like, if there was ever kind of something that was an enigma inside a mystery wrapped around a puzzle inside of Rubik's Cube, it is travel insurance.
Absolutely.
Well, I mean, that really came from a personal experience. First of all, to put in perspective, I took a gap year when I was in my late 20s, and I traveled a backpack around the world for a year. I've always had the wanderlust. And I was thinking back, I don't think I traveled with travel insurance back then, because I guess, you know, you're 27, you're invincible and nothing's going to happen to you. Well, I mean, we don't take the same approach anymore, because as you get a little older and you have some assets, you realize you have some liabilities if you get sick. And that came home a couple years ago when I ended up in the hospital with deep vein thrombosis and ended up with a pulmonary embolism. So I just about met my maker. But the thing that really made us think about the travel insurance is 5 days later, we would have been in Honduras. So luckily we were at home. We had access to really decent medical care, and I came out of the other end unscathed. But it just pointed out, A, things can happen out of the blue. B, you need to be prepared. And then also what provoked writing of the book was the experience that we had dealing with the insurance companies afterwards. Yeah. Because the problem with travel insurance is basically a legal contract that you're entering into, and if you don't read the fine print or don't know what you're buying, you may find out, much to your chagrin, that you didn't know what you're buying, and you may not have coverage when the proverbial muck hits the fan. So and
by then it's too late.
So we decided to research the topic, get into it, and you know that the problem with insurance, negotiating it is like sticking red hot pokers in your eyes. It's that much fun. So we try to write it from a very practical point of view of what you need to look for, how you get the coverage you need without spending a fortune, and that the result of that was the Globetrotter's Guide to Travel Insurance.
Yeah. And we do travel with travel insurance. Always.
Absolutely.
Always.
Yeah. Cool. So tell us about how you simplified everything.
Ooh, okay. Well, we had a 4-bedroom house and full of stuff. once we made the decision, it was a lot easier than expected to stop buying more stuff and fill in more stuff. And we sold stuff mostly through Craigslist was one. So basically furniture, the big items, they went through Craigslist. We did garage sales. We donated a lot to charity. We even, on several of our farewell parties, what was left in the garage, it's like every friend had to take something to remember us with. And so we got rid of some stuff that way. It was a very liberating experience. It was. It's quite cathartic in many ways, getting rid of all the stuff that you don't really need. And as the house got emptier and emptier, we just felt lighter and lighter.
Yeah, so that was the physical stuff. And I mean, going from a 4-bedroom house to 10 bankers boxes, it was 6 months of a lot of work.
Yeah.
And as far as simplifying, the other areas in our life where we simplified was going paperless. And I mean, that's a concept that's out there. And in reality, that's taken us about 4 years to get to the point where we're basically...
We get this much mail now.
We have our mail to an absolute minimum. We're basically paperless. We do all our banking, all our business transactions, most everything online. But that took a lot of planning and preparation. The other area where we had to do some work on is with banking and financing, and finding a bank back in Canada that would facilitate our global roamings. So we did a bit of research what bank would be able to facilitate global travel, and I think we interviewed 4 banks and basically came down to the one that was going to help us out. So it was
okay.
It was
so let us know the secret. What bankers, they keep everything really private and secret. But like which one? Both of us are Canadian, and we may be a while before we get back to Canada, or we may need to go back to Canada to deal with some banks. So which one did you decide on?
We actually settled with TD Canada Trust.
Yes.
And
ignorance is bliss.
I'm with Scotiabank.
Yeah.
Scotiabank. Oh.
Well, the thing is, I think all the Canadian major banks are, they're global in nature, and you definitely see that in the Caribbean. The Canadian banks are everywhere. They're through the States. Their technology is top notch. But I think for us, what the clincher was having a person in the branch and having a personal relationship with someone in the branch, because and that was the case for us, and that's what clinched the decision, and that has paid itself off in spades. Because we've been in places like in Honduras where our bank machines aren't working, and our debit cards aren't working. And if you want to find out the definition of anxious, it's just not being able to get your money out of the bank and feeding yourself.
It's a really bad feeling when you put your card in the bank machine and the bank machine says, ciao.
Sorry.
And then you go into another one.
So having a person in branch to be able to call up on the phone and have them sort you out in a matter of minutes, if not hours, is huge. It's really nice to have a personal contact in the branch, and that'd be my recommendation. There's a lot of banks that have the technology and can do the fancy stuff, but having someone on the end of the phone is huge as well.
There were other advantages. The account we chose, although it has a monthly fee, unless you have a certain amount in the bank, which it's waived, which we keep because that's our slush fund, that's our emergency fund, just in case we need it. But we also have, we have no monthly fee. We get free ATM transactions, apart from any transactions on this end. And what we've found throughout the Caribbean, if you go to a local branch rather than Scotiabank or CIBC, the local banks don't usually charge you a ATM transaction fee. And so we've eliminated the transaction fees that way. They include a free safe deposit box. We got a very good credit card with a no fee package to it as well. So it was just the extra things that added up. And more importantly, the ability to move money around fairly easily, which was important to us.
Well, you guys have a wealth of info and travel, expertise here. There are other people who are still listening who maybe haven't made the travel dreams come true, who want to be digital nomads. So what advice or tips would you give to someone who wants to live the life you're living?
Well, I think for me, going to university, working in a career for 20 years, I think my biggest, from my perspective, being in my 40s, was the leaving the comfort of a career, leaving, jumping off the cliff into the unknown, having those fears in the back of your head, the what ifs, what if I run out of money, or what if this doesn't work out, or what if I have to live in a trailer in the middle of Saskatchewan when I retire. All those fears, I think, are the biggest things that would stop a lot of people, and that was the hurdle I had to get over. But what we found is once we made the decision to live this lifestyle, doors started to open, things started to happen that conspired to make this work. And what we found after 5 years of traveling is, the 99% of the problems that you come up with your head are not going to happen. And
didn't materialize.
So
yeah.
It's having the confidence in yourself to make the leap and make the change.
I think also it's the process of visualization. We spent a lot of time talking about what we wanted, and we wrote it down. We had the big whiteboard, the whole power of attraction thing. There's a lot to be said for it, because 5 years in, everything that we had visualized has come to pass. We've written books. We're living in ocean view villas. It's the power of the mind. The mind, once you've got the decision and you decide to take action towards that decision, it does happen. Doors do open.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much for joining us. We really appreciate everything that you've shared. And I know that, and I'm sure Ricky would agree with me, that we want to have you on again and get some more details on a lot of the things that you've shared, and particularly around house sitting. Because, I mean, there is no problem if you can go and spend 10 months of the year in somebody else's house while they're not there. And I mean, that's a huge amount of our daily expenses looked after. And to be able to do that in the Caribbean or in some of the most beautiful places in the world is definitely a dream come true. So I'm really excited to get to know you more in the coming months and years. And Ricky, any last words from you?
Well, we're all from Vancouver, BC, Canada, so I'm sure our paths are going to cross somewhere on the road, whether back in Vancouver or in the Caribbean or some other country in this planet. So Yvonne and Michael, if you want to just share quickly how people can find you, and feel free to plug your ebooks or anything else before we end off this interview.
Okay, no, you can go.
Okay, well, we have a couple websites. Our house sitting website is thebauches.com, www.thebauches.com, and that's basically our I guess our business card, so to say, for our house sitting business. And then
you have to spell that out, because
it's www.thebauches is THEBAUCHES.com. And then we also have a blog which we use just to document our travel. So it's our personal travel log, which we do have the house sitting guide on, and that's yourescapeblueprint.com.
All right. And for Facebook, we actually started a new group recently. It's Nomadic Retirement Living, and we are going to be launching a website related to that in the next little while. And so if people join the group, it's a group of fellow nomads who live somewhat of this same sort of lifestyle as we do.
Yeah, so we're targeting folks that are retired and want to spend a lot more time traveling in their retirement. That's who we're talking to.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us.
Our pleasure, and we look forward to it again.
Yeah, thank you, Yvonne and Michael. Definitely inspired, as I'm sure most of our listeners are. Who wouldn't want to be living in the Caribbean for free 10 months of the year? So incredible. Thanks, guys. And for those of you who are listening and watching, make sure you subscribe to us on iTunes. Make sure you subscribe to us on YouTube, and share this wealth of knowledge with those of us who are maybe still dreaming and wanting and desiring to travel the world and make money. So thanks for tuning in to Digital Nomad Mastery, where we teach you how to make money while traveling the world. We'll see you in the next episode.
Thank you.